we're going to start things with some moderated questions, and then we're going to open it up for audience Q&A. So you all should have in your program a little space to jot down any questions that come up and then you see along the way. And then we'll invite people up to ask those at the end. But to kick off a conversation like this, and with two such incredible journeys, I think it's only fair that we start by hearing a little bit about those journeys. So, Charlene, can I ask you to please go first? Tell us your journey.
Sure. So, gosh, it started in so I was I actually am going to start at the beginning. So I was born in the ghetto of Oakland, California in 1964. So I will save you the mental math. I'm 61 years old. Because I did CP in 8th grade, right? You know, I'll be always accountant and finance people in the audience. But, and so I am one of 4 children. And I ultimately grew up in a stable family home. Nothing was really expected of a little black girl coming out of Oakland. And I ended up being the first one in my family to go to high school, to graduate high school, the first one to go to college. And then I find myself in college and thinking, well, what is this? Because truth be told, I only went to college because my best friend went to college and I didn't want to be without my best friend. So I went to the Mexico State University because she went there. And then I kind of had to find my way. But I would say everything changed for me when I was 10 years old. And just to kind of take you back, imagine, so we're a 10-year-old little girl and you find yourself at an NFL football game, right? And you don't really care for football, but we're there. And I was there with my mom. We had actually rented our house from an Oakland Raider at the time. And I'm sitting there bored to death until all of a sudden, like 20 women come out on your field, right? And they're shiny and they're sparkly and they're excited. And we know who I'm talking about, right? The Oprah Raiderettes. And as a 10-year-old little girl who felt invisible most of her life or all of her life, I suddenly saw women who were there on purpose and without apology. And that one moment changed my life because I thought, if they can shine, I can shine too. And that's actually really where I then decided that I was going to shine. And I've been a cheerleader my entire life. I cheered in junior high school, in college, post-college, and ultimately in the NFL. And that was always my confidence builder so that I could do what I needed to do to be successful in work. And then ultimately, I retired in 2020 as a C-suite executive in a $40 billion company. Yeah. So that's her in a nutshell. And along the way, I met that doll over there, Greg Uris, who I've been married to for 34 years.
Thank you so much. And what an incredible. And Violeta, you also have an incredible journey.
Well, after that, I don't know. That's not good. My intro was going to be very simple. Now I'm rethinking the whole thing. What could I do when I was a kid? Who inspired me? No, I founded Dolcezza in 2004 with my husband. We wanted to connect people to real food. Ice cream was made in a very industrial way at the time. It was all Baskin and Robbins and Ben & Jerry's. So, we wanted to do small batch premium gelato sourced locally. And do something that made us proud and kind of work for ourselves. That was the thing. Not work for others. And have freedom and create something that, was ours, our ambition. And today we have 7 locations. We sell to 100 restaurants in the area. We sell through Goldbelly. I lead a team of 200 people. And, for 20 years, we've created a small family business, very values forward. That's kind of my story. I don't know how far you want me to go.
That's great. And they struggling because you're not originally from.
No, 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 no. I'm from Argentina. Yes, winners of the World Cup.
Yes.
Same.
No, so you came here and
Yes.
started a business from scratch at a young age.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, yeah. I met my husband in Brazil in the Amazon jungle of all places. I was 20 years old. I was looking for answers. I was into shamanism. So I was like, I need to find a shaman and find the meaning of life. And I ended up meeting my husband. Yeah. And then we moved here. My mom was very scared. She was like, who are you with? I mean, who is this American guy? There's no internet. What's going on? But he ended up being a really good person. And so we ended up moving to the States because the economy in Argentina was horrible, as it's been for the last, I don't know how many decades. Well, first we had gelato in Argentina the first night that I took him back after the Amazon trip. And after floating through the Amazon River on boats with natives on a hammock for 3 months. I took him back to Argentina to meet my mom. I told you about my mom. She was very concerned. So the first night, he was overwhelmed with everything that was going on, and we went across the street and we had gelato. In Argentina, we have a lot of Italians. There's gelaterias everywhere. And he had gelato. He looked at me. He was like, we should open a gelateria in the States. This is amazing. I've been to Europe so many times. This is so much better. And at that point, I was going to go to the moon with him. So I was, you're so cute and crazy, and I'll just follow you. And we did it. We ended up moving back to the States and opening a little store in Georgetown in 2004. And the rest is history. In the middle of that, I worked for National Geographic, and I was a documentary producer for a little while. And then at one point, I decided that, I just wanted to go full time and make gelato with my hubby. Yeah.
So, Charlene, talking about motivation. So, what was your motivation to become a corporate leader, an executive, and then how did you shift that to becoming an entrepreneur?
Gosh. Well, so as I said, I was raised by a single mother. And a single mother in the 70s as a minority is not really a great situation to be in. And so she always worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs. She ultimately passed away at 58, having her second heart transplant. And I credit a lot of that to just the stress of it all. And so I really see myself as her legacy. And so I achieved because of what she sacrificed in order for me to have a better life. So that is never ever lost on me. And at any time when I want to give up, or I want to, throw my hands in the air, or as I'm just tired of this shit, and I'm sorry, excuse me. I remember what she sacrificed. She ever met our kids. I did the last time I saw her before she was really sick was at her wedding. So she was my motivation. And quite honestly, once you get on that hamster wheel, you don't even know you're on it. So you stow, you stow, you stow. And I think at some point, I was chasing validation that called it ambition. And then I got very sick. I was diagnosed with 2 different cancers within 6 months of one another. And it was through that journey that ended up going on for 5+ years that when I went back to corporate, when you step out of something, kind of like the COVID, right? You step out of something and then you go back in, you can't unsee what you see anymore. And so I thought, this is not my life anymore, being a corporate executive, and I need to do something else. And so then I said, okay, well, cancer is going to change my life. I need to change my world. But I wasn't done yet. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I am a woman of third, and so I just said, God, if you bring me through this, And I ultimately actually had my 10th surgery 2 months ago, for my cancer surgery. But I said, God, if you bring me through this, just tell me what I'm supposed to do with it. Because I believe that if something that happens to you, you make it positive for others. And I woke up one day and I said to my husband, God told me to write a book, which you have on your tubas, by the way. And he said, but you don't know how to write a book. I said, I know how to write a book. God said, write a book. So I wrote a book. And then, but surely, and I believe that when you are on the right path, things unfold in front of you, for you. And so that's really just what started to happen. I knew that I was going into more of the purpose and impact part in my life. So that's when I thought, gosh, I can take my experience and even how I did it the wrong way and help other people do it the right way, so they don't find themselves at the top of their room and then sidelined by a disease that that they never asked to have. So my motivation has always been my mother. It's also my two girls and my family, and now it's just to make an impact on as many people as I possibly can while I'm here.
Great. I mean, you talked about family. I've got our husband and two sons, so having a career. I'm not running a business personally, but balancing it all. How do you prioritize being present and balancing it? When this is really for both of you, so. You want to go first? You had 3 kids.
Yeah. I prioritize myself first, before my husband, before my kids. That's what I do. Before my business. I try to do all the things that you hear about all the time, the boring things. I try to sleep well. I try to eat well. I try to do something that I like, not just work. Exercise. I try to do some laugh. I try to dance with my kids. I try to spend quality time with them. And then I try to spend like one date night if I can a week. It's very ambitious, but sometimes it's a lunch. It's not even like a dinner, with Rob, and try not to speak about the business or the children. That's kind of the rule. So I try to connect with him in a different level, just, like not the same routine. I think the routine is what sometimes takes you away from the present moment, because we're so stressed out. It's such a crazy world out there, right? And it's so bombarded, but so much crap. So it's just trying to, really put in focus what's important. And what's important is for me to be okay, then, Rob and I to be okay, then the kids to be okay, and then the business. I love the business, but, it's secondary to all of that. I also meditate, I do a lot of yoga. So a lot of stuff, goes into it. And sometimes I have good times, and sometimes I have bad times. And I don't want to meditate or do yoga, and, I just want to eat a lot of ice cream. And I do that and try not to punish myself. Yeah, that's the other thing, like try not to punish myself. So that's very important too, the judgment.
Oh yeah, and the judgment from I call their friends, the stay-at-home moms, the mommy mafia. The moms that sit home and judge you, and sometimes not quite so silently. But I vote for. Well, first off, I have to say that I don't believe in work-life balance. Right. And I think that somebody came up with that term to make us all feel badly about ourselves, because I've never met anyone who has work-life balance. I also refuse to reduce my life to life and work. Right? Work is just a component of my life. It isn't my life. Right? And I am not. A lot of us get stuck we forget that what we do is not who we are. Right. And so it's important to keep those separate. And, I look for harmony, because there were times where I was killing it, right? And my family hated me. They were like, well, who are you? Right? And then there are times that I am like the best parent in the world. I'm cutting the little sandwiches into animal shapes, to send them off to lunch and feeling really good about myself. And my boss is like, you're never here. You're not getting this done. This isn't done the way I wanted to do. Or I had a boss that turned things in, and I'd say, what do you think? And he'd say, let's just Control-Alt-Delete. right? Then like, okay, that was really nice and encouraging. But anyway, so I don't really put the pressure of balance on myself. I try to decide, okay, what's in harmony? Because sometimes your kids need you, sometimes they really don't need you, right? And it's the same thing with work. So I just try to keep that a kind of about harmony, and to be either in, everybody's kid is going to end up in therapy. So my job is just to minimize the therapy, right? For the stay-at-home moms, their kids are going to say, my mother was always there, I just don't have my own personality. And then the kids whose parents worked, they're going to say, oh, my mother worked all the time. I didn't even, blah, 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 she's never there. So they're all going to be in therapy, so just minimize the amount of therapy, right? You think I'm kidding, but you just wrote it. But I would just say, look for the harmony, be there for the moments that matter. It doesn't mean every moment, but sometimes that means that you do, and I did this a number of times, fly back and forth from Australia in 4 days' time so that you can be there for something that's really important. It's super important to have a spouse, if you're a working woman, to have a spouse who isn't looking for a trad love, because, you just can't, you just can't do it. So it's like, let's not set ourselves up for failure and then beat ourselves up for just being human.
Yes, yes. I actually have another question for you. So, do you think it was harder or easier to balance being in the C-suite, or now, having your own business?
Well, now certainly being the CEO of my own business, my boss can be a little asshole sometimes. She also lets me not start my meetings until 11 o'clock. So, yeah, my husband got there before I did, actually. But, certainly, being the master of your own time is very important. But that doesn't mean that you can't be a C-suite executive. Right? There are certain rules and certain things that you can push back. And I'll tell you this local story. The last company that I worked for, when they made me an offer and had all 5 pages laid out and a pen at the bottom, I might take it to a lawyer or something to see first. Right, I said, I have a question for you. So someone said to me that everybody has to be in the building at 7:30 in the morning. And he says, yeah, that's right. It was an infrastructure company. Everybody was in at 7:30. And I said, that's not going to work for me. And he said, oh, I know you have kids, you have to get them to school. I was like, no, that's not really the issue. Yeah, I do have kids and you do have to get to school, but 7:30 I'll never be on time at 7:30. And he laughs, he goes, well, that's not a deal killer, is it? And I was like, well, it is, actually. It is a deal killer. And so we worked something out, and so it was like, okay, can you be there between 8:30 and 9:30, right? And so you can set boundaries in corporate. We tend to think that we can't, that if you don't ask, you don't get. So I think, now having been through the experience, I think I could make corporate work better for me than I did when I went into it, because I just felt like I needed to fall in line, even though I was a trailblazer in other ways. I felt like I needed to fall in line. Now, I'm the CEO of my own business is great, except when you work for a company, if you work really hard for 2 weeks, you're going to get a paycheck. If you don't do anything for 2 weeks, you're going to get a paycheck. It's not quite the same when you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Violeta, you also have your own business.
Yes.
And you own it with your husband.
I do.
So why don't you share with us a little bit about how that's impacted both running a business and running a household, as a unit together?
Yeah, I love working with him because we're very complementary. I'm very pragmatic, and I'm very much, sort of thinking about what's the next step, and he's thinking about the future, right? and that helps a lot. But on the other hand, it's really consuming, and it just, kind of permeates everything. And that's why I have these lunches that I was talking about without talking about the business, because it's very stressful, and we talk about the business all the time, and my kids are very tired to hear about the business. They probably don't want to be entrepreneurs because they hear us all the time, and they're always telling me, you only fight about the company, you only fight about Dolcezza. So do fight that at Dolcezza. And the good thing is, like we trust each other, and, it's just we know that the next day we're going to be together. It's not a deal breaker by any means. And ultimately, we love what we do. We love the freedom. We love what we created. We love the culture of what we created. We're a very tight, small group, and most of the people who work for us have been working for us for over a decade. We empower from within. Our, partner today was our first employee that we hired, our ice cream maker. Our driver, who we hired, was our second employee who we hired. He's been with us for 20 years. Our COO was a barista and a scooper at my Bethesda shop. My culinary director was 16 years old when we hired him. He's like 34 right now. So it's all people who've been with us for a very long time. And I think that's the most rewarding part more than anything, just working with them every day and going to their weddings and meeting their kids and that whole thing I really, really, really like. And then the other thing that we both like is we like to take things to the next level. And I really, really appreciate that. I didn't know I was an entrepreneur, but I am very much. I had no idea that, I had it in me, but I get bored really easily, and we always like to elevate everything. So, there's always a new challenge. There's always something else that we're doing. And I think that helps a lot, the dynamic in terms of not being static.
Yeah. And everybody now wants to apply to be an ice cream It was a real couple. So she says that she likes to elevate everything. And I have the coolest story from COVID. You guys picked up and got in an RV. And took off with the.
I was like, which one? Yeah. What did we do? We closed 2 stores. I was like, let's not talk about that. No, the RV was awesome.
Great. And you guys went for how long were you?
We went for like 5 weeks. We went cross country 9,000 miles. We just went, and I was like, just had it. Yeah. There was no internet in so many places, and I had conversations with my children. And it was amazing. And we walk out every day in a different place, and this country is insane. It's just like, I couldn't believe the beauty. And just, nature overall, right? And just that sort of slowing down and being connected to something else other than, we're connected to every day, our phones and all of that. So, yeah, all good things. Yeah.
So, our next subject here is what's next. So, Violeta, I know you did accomplish so much and done so many amazing things, but we're all curious about what's next.
We are always trying to grow the business all the time. So right now we're looking for another location, see where we can open. DC is kind of bad right now, so we're looking more in the suburbs, like.
We're in Virginia.
Come to Kimberly, serve more in Virginia.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing, Just want to continue growing and perhaps going into another market. That's sort of maybe an aspiration. We'll see, kind of like a long-term goal. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of where we are.
And Charlene, any sneak peeks?
Yeah, I had no idea. I thought I was going to be a corporate executive. He kind of died at her desk, and and I'd be proud of that. And obviously, that didn't happen. I became an entrepreneur. I did not know I was going to become a leadership coach or a keynote speaker, or an author, and I did those things. So I literally had no idea what's next, because I'm confident that it's going to find me rather than me out searching for it. That I think it's going to be big. I love probably of anything I do. I like the leadership coaching, and I love keynote speaking. So I'm always looking for bigger stages. My publisher wants me to write another book, and etc. I write a book when I have something to sell, rather than just to write another book. So, so who knows? You know, we're close to retirement too. Although I don't think I'll ever retire. That's really not what I think about. Who knows? I mean, I was kind of like the world is full of possibilities. I live in a word at a mindset of abundance, not scarcity. So it could be anything except pay the basis because I had too much fun in college.
I mean, as incredible as that seems, and as a great a conversation it says, we're kind of coming to a close of our predetermined and moderated questions. And I think the way to end a great conversation about your journeys is for you all to look back and know what life you would have for those among us who might be looking to become entrepreneurs, who might be looking to make that next big career move. What words of caution or encouragement you have for them? You know, so we can start with Charlene maybe first.
Sure. Do it before you're ready, right? Because if you wait until you're ready, you'll never get started. Sell it before you build it, right? So that you have clients, and we've all heard that, you know, build it and they will come, and, you know, that only worked in the field of dreams and nowhere else. So absolutely sell it before you build it. And, you know, it's, you know, my mantra in life and when I speak is that it's choice, not chance, that changes your life. Don't leave your life, your career, your relationships, your health. Don't leave it to chance. Make a choice.
I love that. Yeah, power. What I would say is, I think that jobs are bad when you have a bad boss, honestly. That's what I think. I think any place that treats you with respect and you can grow is a good place. So I think people think about, you know, big career changes without thinking about that. You know, it's just like, am I in a place in which I can develop myself and I'm treated well? And if you are, then everything is okay, you know? And if you're not, and your boss is not good, I would say get out of there because you put so many hours into that. That's my advice. Yeah.
Well, that's great advice. I know it's hard having listened to such incredible stories this morning, but you all have to be dying with some questions. You know, something you want to ask these amazing ladies. So we're going to invite anybody who has a question. I know it seems intimidating to walk up to this podium. I yelled at a little bit ago, and your breakfast and enjoy and ask.
Yeah, sure. You too.
Where, what company you're with, or what you're looking to do, and ask about amazing panelists.
I do have a question. I was making notes. I was listening, but I was making notes. So my name is Tommy. I work at Citrin Cooperman.
You can flip the mic on, and it's a little switch on the side. It's green.
Is it green already?
It's
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Tommy. I work at Citrin Cooperman. And my question is more specifically for both Charlene and Violeta.
Yes.
You both have done and accomplished so much. And this question was really born out of what you said at the very beginning, Charlene, when you had mentioned going off to college and being unsure of where you landed. In those moments, or could you share a moment where you've ever experienced imposter syndrome or self-doubt and how you overcame that?
So how much time have you got? You know, I would say throughout my career, because often they're a minority, you're the first, you're the only, and you have a lot of people telling you that you don't fit, you know, just wait your turn, it's not right, you don't belong in this room. And so that's it. When I said I was chasing validation and calling it ambition, a lot of that is I don't know if it's imposter syndrome as much as it is the result is the same, always feeling like you needed to prove yourself. And for me, it really wasn't until I got sick and started to come out of that I realized that I had been enough all along, and I made the mistake of believing people who didn't believe in me. And so once I had that realization, then it was just all bets were off. And it became more that if somebody said something that made me feel less than, instead of me owning it, my question became, what's wrong with you that you can't see how fabulous I am? Right? Rather than kind of carrying the water for them. But, the one thing that I'd say about people who experience imposter syndrome, it's in your head. And it was absolutely in your head. You are where you are because you've earned it, not because, someone plucks you out of obscurity. That never happens. You earned it. You deserve to be there, and change that soundtrack that you've got running in your head, right? That's telling you that you're not enough, you're not good enough, you're lucky to be here. No, you earned everything you have plus some. And if you don't convince yourself of that, how can you expect other people to be convinced of it? I'm a big believer in the energy you put out is the energy you get back in. And if you put out an energy with insecurity, that's exactly what's going to be fed back to you.
What do I think of imposter syndrome? I think it's a very negative way to call something that we all go through. Women more than men, because we're cyclic, because we go through, ups and downs. Guys seem to be more like linear. Women are like this. So, we just have times in which we're insecure and we need somebody to tell us, hey, no, you're fine. And then we have times in which we're super strong. And it's okay, it's just the way that we are. I don't think it's such a big deal. I think we all go through it. And I think it's just a question of figuring out that it's just a moment in your life. Or maybe you're young, and you're young, you just don't know, what you're doing, where you're going. And once you think you figure it out, you're kind of old, and it's just you're not so in the game anymore. So it's kind of weird, right? Just just saying that life is kind of funny, the way that it develops, and we go through different phases, and for women, it's a lot. We have children, your body changes, you're not as hot as you were. There are all these things, that you go through, or maybe you are super hot after you have kids, but in general, it's just a difficult change in your body. It's a difficult change in your hormones. It's a difficult change in your marriage. So all those things make you doubt sometimes, and that's fine. You just need to find your strength again. It's just a moment. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I love that.
It's a long walk.
Yeah, that's a long walk. If there are other questions. We've got a question back here.
Oh, you got back there? My name's Chris. I'm also at Citrin Cooperman. You guys kind of touched on balance of family and work and all that kind of stuff, and Charlene in particular, how you said it's not really a balance, but it is inevitable that sometimes work is going to have to take priority over your kids. So how do you set the boundaries with that, and how do you kind of get over the parental guilt, or in particular in your case scenario, mom guilt? How do you handle that?
Well, I think guilt is a useless emotion, so I don't really spend any time on guilt. But I think that when it comes to balance, that guilt sets in because you are comparing yourself to a standard that was set by someone you don't even know, right? And so don't do that, right? It's everybody's definition of what makes a good parent is different. And so, I know that I would have been a really crappy stay-at-home mom. I know that about myself. It's not me. It's not, so my job then became showing, to young women, young girls, how to grow up to be independent women and strong, independent women who had choices, right? But at the same time, though, I was just strong enough that I wasn't going to make I wasn't going to let other people make me feel guilty because of their standard, because they weren't living my life. And so I think that's when we get ourselves into trouble, is when we start comparing ourselves, against other people. And then, I did use some unconventional tactics sometimes. I did pay my daughter not to be a Girl Scout. Let me rephrase that. I offered her money not to be a Girl Scout, and she took the money. She had a choice, but she took the money. So there are trade-offs. I'm not saying pay your kids, but people who say you shouldn't bribe your children probably they don't have any. But you figure out what works for your family, and you don't have to justify it. It's what works for the family. And sometimes at work, you do have to say no. You have that right, to say no, and just be willing to live with whatever the repercussions are of that. And sometimes you have to sit your child down and say, I really want to be at this, at this dance performance, but I especially want to be at your recital. So I'm not going to be at this performance because I'm going to be at your recital. Right? It's always a give and take, I think.
I have 3 girls, 16, 13, and 9. So, yeah. What do I do? I do sometimes feel guilty. But I think one of the reasons why I chose to be an entrepreneur is, I think in the corporate world it's much more difficult. So for me, if they're sick, I can just take them to the doctor. So it's a huge advantage. I don't have to tell anybody. Like, I can't show up. I can cancel a meeting if I want to. I raised my kids with me. I was nursing them and taking them to see my CPA and my attorney, and I didn't care. And that was part of why I chose to have my own company. A big part of why, because I don't think, honestly, that America supports families. I don't. I think it's much better in Europe and South America. I think here is bad, and it's really, really, really hard. And childcare is super expensive, and you don't have family around, and it's a mess. And so I think it's difficult, and I think that's why people feel guilty, because they're trapped in these situations, that is just not ideal. I was very lucky to have my mom and my sister around. I don't think I would have 3 kids without them. Like, they helped me raise my children. Plus, I own my own business. That's how I made it work. But that's not how the world works in general. Yeah.
I will say what gives me hope. There is, 10 years ago, we were having this panel. There wouldn't be a man asking about work-life balance. It would only be women, right? And we'd all be whining to each other, because that's what it was. I mean, those were the days where if your kid was sick, you were lying to your boss about why you weren't going to work, right? And you never were going to say that you're going to miss work for a field trip, or something like that. But I think with this younger generation of men who are saying, I want to be there for my kids too. And I think that helps all of us. Right.
Is in the thick of it.
Yeah, I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 2-month-old son, so with this thank you. Past October 15th, Hillary and I had multiple conversations where he was like in the carrier on my chest.
Right.
You got to make work, but again, thank you guys and appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
You can type at home more questions if anybody else. I know there has to be some questions.
Oh, I saw 3 questions here.
Mine was a short walk to the front. Great information, great inspiration. Do each of you have a
I think we have a lot of tools nowadays to find ourselves, to ground ourselves, right? Entrepreneurs, business people, all of us. But do you each have a favorite tool, a book, a podcast, when you kind of feel yourself veering off the path that you can pull yourself back? Because we all go off the path. We all have the guilt. We all have the ups and the downs, right? But how do we pull ourselves back in?
Yeah, so mine is music. And I have most mornings I have a dance party with my dogs. I have a certain playlist that I play, and we just kind of, well, I dance, I hop around, but that's just kind of my way of saying, okay, let's just be in the moment and be in life, and the other stuff is just stuff. That's kind of my way of just kind of starting my day.
Does Graham join?
No, but God knows when I'm having a dance party or if I'm not in a good mood, because he's like, where's the music? Where's the music?
I always say more music, less news.
Yes.
Saddles. I'd ask the
Yeah.
yes.
News, like, just, that's the thing that anyway. I try to meditate every morning when I'm in bed. I don't even sit. I just do like breathing exercises before I look at my phone, and just meditate for like 20 minutes. It's not even that long, but at least it like clears my mind and tries to center me before I start my day, and I look at my emails and all of that. But in general, there's not really a formula. It's just something creative in general helps. If you're down. But whatever that is, it can be go to a museum, it can be go on a walk, it can be dancing, it can be meditating, it can be just laughing or watching a rom-com, whatever, it's just getting out of your mind, because when you're down, it's your mind, that is just tricking you. And so that's it.
Take the time. Now, I will say I binge watch stupid TV on Saturday mornings for a solid 4 hours. Right? I mean, if there's a done TV show, I can tell you what's going on in it. So just take the time, whether that's a walk, whether I got a bike recently that I keep falling off of, that I still, ride my bike. And, Greg and I, we have been empty nesters for 10 years now, I think, but we still had date night every Saturday night without fail. We have date night when the kids were home, and when they were little, we met for lunch, and on Wednesdays, I think it was, at Aretas for years and years and years. And so I would say you don't have to have one thing, but you need to take the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's
Good morning, and thank you for this business. And I have a plethora of questions, to be honest, but I will make just one. And first of all, this congratulations to both of you, because it's a big journey in general for whatever you do. But I think we can honestly say harder if you are women and if both of you are minorities. So, I mean, kudos to that. I don't know what to say, actually. My question goes to these journeys. There are a lot of challenges. Cultural, language, many others. What do you think is the main character trait or philosophy that helped you get through all, or reinvent yourself if you had to do that? What is the character trait that you think we must not lack to get there?
Wow. I feel like I need to call Gandhi. Yeah, so it is. Remember that he says something amazing that of course I can't quote, but something like, your thoughts create your habits, and your habits create your actions, and your actions define your destiny, something like that. I think it's that. I think it's the thoughts. I think it's just rewiring your mind. I think it's just, we live in a world in which they are trying to manipulate our brains all the time, non-stop. And it's just where you put your attention. And then that defines what you do with your life.
I would say, so you all have my book in front of you. And the title of the book is, the main title is You Are Enough. And that is very intentional because throughout your life, and at least in my life, I was overrun with people who would constantly tell me that I wasn't enough. Right? When I was working and I was a cheerleader, it was like, we'll never gonna take you seriously because you're a Barbie, you look like a Barbie doll. Or then it was, well, you know, you're a minority and you don't have, you know, minority women executives. And then it's, you know, you're too young, and then it's you're too old, and then it's, so if you're not careful, then you will let people at a very early age erode your belief in yourself. And if you don't believe in yourself, it is hard to accomplish anything. So the first thing I would say is understand, I see what the person says, and one says, you are enough. And the other one says, it's choice, not chance, it changes everything. And so the character trait you need to have is self-belief and self-leadership, right? Because no is really just not yet, right? And I think there are people who are underserved in any way. You know, you can't let the barriers be walls, right? They're just something you have to figure out how to get through, around, under, whichever. But don't let other people determine who you are and what you are.
There's another question, I think.
On the walk.
Good morning. My name is Tahira Khan. I'm with Truist. I have the pleasure of working with Greg.
Me too.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and being vulnerable with us, especially coming from diverse minority backgrounds. I can definitely relate. My question is, well, it's more kind of a statement. I know with statistics, they show that it's challenging for women to advocate for themselves in the workplace. For example, for men, they might be more inclined to apply for a role, even if they don't have all their experience. And women, they kind of go through the check boxes, make sure that they have the experience in every single trait that's needed on the job role. What do you recommend for women to help them, encourage them to, you know, toot their own horn at work and also be able to advocate for themselves when they're applying for other roles?
Well, do you want me to start? Go ahead. So the statistic actually is that men will apply for jobs if they have 60% of the qualifications. Women will apply for a job if they have 100% of the qualifications. Nobody wants a job that they're 100% qualified for, because you're going to be bored in a month, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. The idea of a job description, it's a wish list, not a must list, right? So it's like, oh, if you could get everything we wanted, it'd be da-da-da-da-da. It's a marathon, right? Every job description is looking for a unicorn, so just go for it, right? I mean, literally just suck it up and go for it. You know, would be my first, you know, advice on that. And, you know, don't hold yourself back, right? We actually, you know, that feeling when you talk yourself out of something before you've even talked yourself into it, right? Stop doing that. Right? Just go for it, because if you lose, Rooms up already said it, right? If you lose, don't lose anything. You know exactly what you started. So, you know, so I'm a big believer in just go for it. If it's a job you want, go for it. Who knows? They may be so enamored of their personality that they've forgotten about the other things that they want. And have the confidence to know that they'll figure it out when you get there. Because I can tell you that most men, not my husband, but most men, you know, they know they don't know how to do the job, but they just will figure it out once they get there. Well, I wouldn't be the same way. Quite frankly, women are even more, you know, industrious the men are, and we're constantly trying to figure things out. That's like our superpower. So I had that kind of confidence. And what was the rest of your question? Did you?
I think this overall, like, it ties into just women advocating for themselves, like maybe making partnerships at work, kind of trying to find people that will support you and advocate for you as well.
Okay.
So advocating for yourself. Don't go to your boss and start, I'm advocating for myself. Okay, all right. You have to put it happens. The thing about it is we talk about mentors and champions. Okay, everybody needs a mentor. Mentors help you acclimate. Bad mentors help you assimilate. That's not what you're looking for. Find a champion. Champions are the people who are in the rooms that you aren't in. They're in the meetings that you are not invited into. They're the people who bring up your name, like in those meetings, when they're saying, oh, hey, we need somebody for this position, and they're talking about, excuse me, ma'am, but they're talking about all the gals. The champion is the one who says, oh, well, did you think about Harry? Did you think about Charlene? Did you think about Violeta? Find the champion. And just one other thing, a champion opens the door so that your voice can be heard. You're not looking for someone who's going to speak for you. There's a very big difference there. But absolutely, find a mentor, be a mentor. Find a champion, be a champion.
Yeah, I love what you say. Yeah, it's a lot of it has to do with confidence, right? But confidence is it's a hard thing, because we can say, hey, feel good, go for it, but then maybe you don't. And what do you do to get there, right? For me, that's all I can speak of. When I was younger, I was more insecure. I think that comes with age, and being a woman, it makes it more difficult. It was a different time. Now I feel like it's, we're all here, and before it wasn't that way. No one wanted to hear, there were no panels for minorities and women and blah, 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 and that made it more difficult. But now I think it's a better time, much better time. I think this generation, with the fragility that came with us, that's the bad part, so some are empowered, and they're not, willing to just sit there and, just have a bad time. They're advocating for themselves so much more, and that's the good thing. For me, it was about getting to know myself. That's what gave me confidence. And it wasn't coming from the outside. It was coming from me and the process that I had to do with myself. Feeling better about who I was came from just spending a lot of time looking at my issues and my triggers, trying to figure out why, I was insecure, why I had fears. And what were those fears? And that's very much, what keeps us sort of, from just going out and being more secure. So that's what I had to work with, it was a lot of, mommy and daddy stuff, to be honest, later, but that's what it is, So it was more of a personal thing, that just took me to a different level of confidence. And for advocating, I like to be friends with other women. I think there's a lot of competition, right, within females because of patriarchy, and just, understanding that that's not necessary. And, we're all equals. We're not better or worse, Men are wonderful, women are wonderful, we're all humans, we all go through the same things. So just, understanding that the empathy has to be there at all times. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could add one thing to that too is, when you're in a meeting, speak up. Okay, use your voice. We often sit in those meetings and we say, well, if I say something, it's going to sound stupid, so I'm not going to say anything at all. And so then you disappear, right? And when it happens, and I see this with my coaching clients, and those are people who are in the C-suite, women, which is like, oh, well, we don't know if this person can be promoted because they don't have a point of view, right? And so when you're in a meeting, speak up. Even if when you speak up, you get like crickets after, because that happens a lot when a woman speaks up, and I ruin it on men, is you say something, you think you're brilliant, and it's like crickets, right? And then like 5 seconds later, a man will say something similar, and people will go, oh, wow, whoa, right? So the way you do that, the way you get over this, is you find, hopefully, we're not the only woman in the room, that we find another woman, or you find a friend who's going to be in that room too, and you tell them in advance, I am going to have an opinion on this, and I want you to back me up, right? Just that simple. Oh, absolutely that calculated, right? So that when you saw it, somebody else says, oh yeah, that's a great perspective. They don't even have to agree with you, right? But set it up in advance. You guys have heard the saying, lobby the bull before it hits the floor. It's the same thing in corporate. Get those people who can support you, and then before you know it, it will become very natural for you to speak up. You will have a point of view. A lot of times women are not promoted because they aren't visible, right? They just don't come to mind because they're not taking on those hard assignments, they're not saying the hard thing, and they don't get the feedback. That's the negative feedback because, the guys don't want to hurt our feelings, right? That they're actually hurting our feelings every day. So don't be afraid to speak up, find your voice, use your voice, and help other people use their voice. And then another law about advocating for yourself is you bring other people along with you. So let's say there's a project, and the project went really well. You're saying, I am so proud of the team and what they did, and I just felt so honored to lead them, right? That's advocating for yourself and gaining other people along with you, right? So it's not just about you. When you get to a certain level, it's not really what you had to say about yourself. It's about the people who you lead are saying about you, right? So bring people along with you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Oh, Jenny.
Good morning, Jenny Hilera Pade with Citrin Cooperman. Charlene, Violeta, thank you for sharing your journey. It's incredibly remarkable, very inspiring. I have a question for each one of you. What would be your advice to your young self?
I would say everything is going to be okay. Yeah, because that's what, I would still say that to myself today.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's just this constant stress of not knowing what's going to happen and, stressing out about the unknowns. And in the end, everything works out. And when it doesn't work out, it still works out, because whatever you go through, whatever crisis, I also have cancer, we didn't even talk about it. There are so many things happen, right, in my life that were bad. And they weren't that bad, They just, at the time, they seemed really bad. And then they ended up making me stronger, better, having a better perspective, appreciating something more. So crisis in our life just challenges you all the time. And that's never going to change, right? But in the end, you figure it out. We all figure it out, right? And we keep going. And we only have one life and it's very short. So, we might as well think that everything is going to be okay and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I taught myself to just calm the heart down. Yeah. Well, there's a sort of straight way of saying, what your thought is. We just get so worked up, and it's like I used to tell my team when you get so worked up because the chairman is upset about something. And it's like, you know what, guys? We're not curing brain cancer here. It's like a press release. Right? I mean, it's like just have some perspective, and just kind of calm down and you can make better decisions when you do that. And say, yeah, I would tell myself, stop worrying about where you're going to be in 10 years and worry about where you are today.
Thank you.
Heard. So as we bring this conversation to an end, I'd like everyone was just carry forward the energy and the wisdom and the courage that's been shared today. I want to thank our panelists and our audience for your engagement. As Charlene mentioned, her book is on the table. So we just figured whoever's birthday is closest to today's date gets to pick it.
Honor system, not licensing you on my Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.